Heavenly Father, we thank you for this family, for the good work that you let us do.
You are saved. I know we're a long way from home, but this is what God wants of us.
Elliot.
Where's Elliot?
Elliot!
Father, Ellie seems different. He is not himself. The shaman. I think they did something to him.
You okay?
Are you, Father?
The church. The water. All of it is thanks to you.
Ese lugar no es para ti.
Whatever is going on, it isn't medical. ¿Qué es esto?
What did he do to my son?
This is not them. They don't have that power. Our boy is sick, that is all.
Crean no lo crean. Toma lo que quiere. Parece que quiere a tu hijo. Who are you?
I'm just a boy. We're losing him.
Tu Dios no tiene poder aquí. There's evil in this world. And the next.
What is this? What's happening?
You're not doing God's work. Not anymore.
Take off your mask, Father.
Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Fresh Cuts. This is Mike. Joining me as always, it's Mr. Venom. What's up, Venom?
Greetings and salutations, holy men everywhere. I'm doing pretty well. How the hell are you doing, Mike?
I'm doing okay. Just lots of life stuff distracting me from fun things, but I somehow managed to get this movie in, and that's why we're here doing this episode. So, also with us, it's Dawn and Ellie. What's up, Dawn?
Yeah, what's going on? Always happy to be here.
All right, no theatrical release, or at least one wide enough, so we found one on VOD, and it's called Shaman, and it's listed as a folk horror, supernatural horror. Synopsis: a missionary converting an indigenous community in a remote Ecuadorian volcano must come to terms with her own faith when her son is possessed by dark forces. All right, Venom, what did you think about the possessing dark forces of Shaman?
Well, anyone who knows me knows that I absolutely love, demonic possession horror, supernatural horror. It's probably, along with zombies, probably one of my favorite subgenres, with some others as well. So obviously, I'm going to be a little overly critical of most demonic possession movies, as, like I said, it's one of my favorite subgenres of horror. Now, with this one, with Shaman, it's not necessarily, how can I put this? It's not necessarily the storytelling that bothers me about this movie. It's our main character, the mom. She makes, and obviously we're spoiler free right now, but she makes a decision at the end of the movie that I just fucking hate. I absolutely fucking hate it. And that's how the movie ended. The movie ends after this woman makes the decision that she makes. Now, folks, listen, I am not a parent. I've said that before, and I'll say it many, many more times. I am not a parent, and I never will be. So what someone would be willing to do to save their child, I guess I can't really fathom it. But when I think about what this woman did at the end of the movie, just really, really irks the shit out of me. And obviously, when we get into the spoiler section, I'll be able to get into more detail. Maybe Mike, as Mike is the only parent on this podcast, maybe he could chime in and tell me, would he have done the same thing? I mean, like I said, I'll have a lot to say when we actually get to the spoiler section, but I mean, let's get back to the movie. The movie is gorgeous. It's beautifully shot, beautifully edited. It's obviously set in a small Ecuadorian village next to a volcano. So obviously you've got beautiful scenery. I mean, the movie opens with just some beautiful scenic shots of the area. And once we get into the story, we kind of see this couple, this kind of American couple who's, trying to, missionaries trying to bring God to this remote Ecuadorian village, which is something that I obviously have a major issue with in and of itself, but I'll keep that under my hat for now. Overall, I did enjoy the movie. I like that the whole exorcism scene didn't really last very long, and it was fairly ineffective, so it kind of subverted that expectation, which I kind of liked. For whatever it's worth, our priest of this movie was completely ineffectual, just basically a waste of a character, but I understand why he's there. He's got to add a little something, a little horror tinge to this thing. This is a slow burn, folks, so be prepared for a slower paced movie. Not a big body count, at least not on film. Maybe after the movie there's going to be a high body count, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. So not a whole lot of horror set pieces, a lot of horror action. I've talked, I don't remember if it was on Fresh Cuts or the main show, where I talked about my love of scorpions. I absolutely adore scorpions. I have multiple scorpion tattoos on me with plans for many more. And yes, the scorpions in this movie are CG, but for whatever it's worth, I was okay with it. I mean, no such thing as a scorpion wrangler. Scorpions do what they want to do. They can't be trained. So I understand the use of CGI. So I'm okay with it. At least they looked good, and they don't abuse it either. I mean, when you see the movie poster, you kind of think that the scorpions are going to be like a major part of the film and that they're going to be in here constantly. But no, we just get a couple of quick shots of them here and there. They end up, one of the scorpions ends up kind of taking out a character later in the film, which we'll talk about later. But yeah, like I said, overall, the filmmaking is great. I'm totally on board for the basic story, the basic setup, the whole, I mean, we don't really get a whole lot about our not titular, but we don't get a whole lot about our titular shaman either, at least backstory anyway. And we get very little backstory about the entity in this one as well. We get a very brief description, and that's it. So overall, I enjoyed the movie, but the fact that the movie ends with a decision that I absolutely abhor. I mean, if I could reach into a movie and strangle someone, it would have been this mother. But again, I am not a parent, so I don't know what parents would go through in this situation. I'll leave it at that for now. I overall enjoyed the movie, direction, editing, score, cinematography. Just, as far as the filmmaking elements go, I'm on board with all of it. I'm on board for maybe like 80 to 90% of the storytelling in this one. But like I said, and I understand she had to make the decision that she makes just to kind of end the movie. The movie can't go on forever. So I understand you have to end it somewhere. It's just one of those things where I really wish this director and writing team would have come up with something a little bit more triumphant, something that would have made this woman seem as holy as she thinks that she is, when obviously she really is not at all. So, like I said, overall, I enjoy the movie, but I do have some major issues with some of the characterizations. I'll leave my general thoughts at that for now. Not a strong recommend, but like I said, if you're like me and you love the demonic possession, there is some good stuff to experience in this movie. And hell, maybe a lot of the viewers out there, I'm sure both of my co-hosts probably don't have the issues that I have, because we've talked about this before, the way that I kind of value characterization. And, Mike has talked about how, shitty characters or unlikable characters don't really bother him. And I'm sure that's the norm for the majority of horror fans. But for me, I don't know. even throughout the film, I didn't hate her throughout the film, but she did do and say some things that were very contradictory to her message that she's sending to this village, and that kind of makes her a hypocrite in my eyes. So yeah, I'll leave it at that. Good movie, definitely short of great.
All right, let's go over to Dawn. What'd you think of Shaman?
Yeah, I'm kind of right there. Good movie, not great. Yeah, I can definitely see where Venom's coming from because I have a couple of the same issues with the finale as he does. But again, we'll get to that later. Again, I like a lot of what he said. The story looks good. The place looks good. The village is quite atmospheric, and the way it unfolds is actually really nicely done. I like the buildup of the possession. I like the way that it kind of deals with a more localized piece of folklore, just because I'm not the strongest with Ecuadorian folklore. I mean, who is? But in terms of South American localities, it's one of the lower exposed ones, if that's kind of the term. But either way, I like the way that kind of builds. You get a little bit here and there with more common bits of Americanized folklore with the way he acts out, the way that it kind of just starts slowly making it more obvious that he's possessed. I do wish that it moved a little faster. Yeah, the pacing's not the greatest. It feels very deliberate and not in a good way. I I see where they're going with, but it does tend to take a while before things really start happening. Uh, I think the first exorcism sequence is like the first time anything supernatural like actually happens, and that's barely an hour in. So yeah, it definitely could have moved a little faster. It definitely could have had a little bit more energy and momentum. And yeah, then we get the finale, and we'll talk about that. But overall, I like it for what it is. I don't say it's recommend as high as some of the other exorcism films we've covered. Um, I know we covered like Cleansing Hour. I know we covered Late Night with the Devil. I think both of those are still far more worthwhile in this genre. This one's not a bad watch. Just like I said, if you know what you're going into and you're going to be prepared to hate the finale, you could do worse than this. But again, if you're still on the fence about it, I would probably wait until maybe Halloween season to give this a watch. Maybe it'd be one of your 2025 catch up films or something like that. But yeah, I can't say that this is going to be high on the list, or like high priority for most others. If you're making a top 10 list, this is at best going to be like an honorable mention. There's structure issues, there's pacing issues, there's characterization issues, but I can't say I hated it. So yeah, guess without risk of spoiling anything, I guess back to you.
Okay, so you guys liked it more than me. I liked the beginning when I thought it was going to be more of a folk horror than possession, and once it kind of transitioned to a possession movie, I lost most interest. It just felt like stereotypical possession stuff. I got bored really quick, and the movie never recovered for me. I think it looks a lot better than I would have expected from like a movie of this budget. Like it's already been mentioned, it is the cinematography is good. The location shots are pretty. Like it's a nice movie to look at. I just had trouble being invested in the story. I've seen so many possession movies that I was really hoping it would be more folk horror, and to me, that element of the movie just wasn't really there. What else? And yeah, we can talk about the ending, I guess, when you do the spoiler walkthrough, but I don't know. I don't really have anything else to say about it. I didn't really like it that much, so that's it for me.
I guess I'm not that surprised. It is a fairly color by numbers exorcism movie. other than maybe the ending being slightly different than your average exorcism movie. But yeah, like I said, we talked about the pacing. I have no issue with Mike not really digging the movie that much because, like I said, it's a lot of been there, done that. Now, obviously, the setting is a little bit different. We don't usually see possession movies in like small villages and foreign, especially not Asian countries. Like we might see like Korean or Thai or Indonesian possession movies in a village, but at least I can't think of any South American ones that I've ever seen. So I mean, at least it's a little something different. We've already talked about the cinematography. It's a beautiful movie, ultimately. Not a whole lot of set pieces like we talked about, though. Atmosphere is there. There is some decent tension, especially when they're inside the cave, both at the beginning of the movie when the kid's kind of exploring, and then later in the movie when we're actually going through some kind of ritual. I mean, what else can we really say that's kind of spoiler free? There's not a whole lot here. Like I said, it's a beautiful film, but it definitely leaves a lot to be desired. And me being a kind of a possession film stan, it definitely left me wanting more. Aside from the one character that I just hated by the end of the movie, it really felt like it was lacking in a lot of ways. Now, if this is like I don't know, it almost looks like it's a brother team that directed and wrote this. We've got Antonio Nigret as the director and Daniel Nigret as the writer. So I can only assume that they're related, but that's kind of cool that we got like a family duo. Obviously we've got stuff like the Addams Family out there doing all their horror movies, so it is nice to see a family production, if you will. This movie's sitting on a 4.4 on IMDb right now, which probably seems closer to Mike's score than it does to mine. I would definitely give this one a little bit higher score just based on its nice filmmaking aspects. The storytelling is good, but it's the story that leaves you wanting more. It's not the cinematography, it's not the score, it's not the direction, it's just the storytelling. I mean, especially for us hardcore horror fans, we want to see a little bit more carnage, we want to see a little bit more demonic action. Hell, we want to see the demon. I don't know if that's much of a spoiler, but we don't actually see him in this movie. And that's crazy because even in Annabelle, we get to see Malthus, even though Annabelle is kind of the star of all her own movies, we still get to see the demon possessing Annabelle in that movie, which granted, I think it took us till the second movie to actually see him. It's been a while since I've seen the first Annabelle, but anyway, that definitely left me a little, I would have liked to have seen some more creature action. I will say we get a pretty cool mask. The kid, the possessed child, periodically when he's doing his evil things will actually wear a mask that's actually pretty damn cool looking. Looking at this mask, I would have guessed it was Asian, but no, it's very South American, and it is apparently it is a representation of the demon in this movie, whose name is Supay, Supay, pronounced Supay. Like I said, we don't get a whole lot of backstory other than that he's a god of death and he wants life. That's pretty much what we really get as far as backstory on Supay. But yeah, I guess if my co-hosts don't have too much more to say, I guess let's go ahead and get into what should be a fairly short walkthrough for this one. Like I said, our movie opens up with some beautiful cinematography. And what's funny, did the aspect ratio fuck with you guys a little bit? This movie is shot in like 278, which is insane for a straight to VOD movie to be shot in that aspect ratio. It kind of like took me out of it for a second. I'm like, these are the biggest black bars I've seen on my television in so long. I mean, this looked like a Quentin Tarantino 70 millimeter movie. So I don't know. Obviously that's a purposeful choice, but yeah, man, at the beginning, it definitely kind of takes you out of it for a little bit. After a while, you don't even notice. It might even go away. Honestly, I might not have noticed. It might have gone to a more normal aspect ratio after the cold open or whatever. Not that we really get much of a cold open in this one, unfortunately. Now the movie opens and we're first introduced to our titular child, Elliot. Elliot is an American. His parents, Candace and Joel, are missionaries who are obviously here in this village in Ecuador, bringing God and Christianity to the heathens of Ecuador. We see Elliot at the beginning of the movie playing with like one of those air not paper airplanes, but you know, I don't know what those things are called, but just one of those like cardboard airplanes that you put together. You always see fail videos of people throwing them in the air and then the thing turns around and hits them right in the head. One of those guys. So Elliot's playing with that. He ends up throwing it, it accidentally goes into a cave. There's a couple of kids there. Well, he's playing with a couple of the local kids, and they tell him, don't go in there, don't go into the cave. Elliot thinks that it's just like parents telling, you know, the kids not to go into the cave, but then the kids correct them and they're like, no, 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 it's not just our mother, it's everyone saying that, do not go in that cave. Elliot, of course, being the brash American boy, decides to go in there. He goes in there, he finds his plane. When he goes to bend down to pick it up, someone grabs his hand. Obviously, as horror fans, we're thinking there's some kind of creature or something, but then the camera pans around and it's just an older gentleman. It's our titular shaman, you know, looking very much like a shaman would. And Elliot ends up just kind of running away and leaving the cave. In the process, he ends up dropping his grandfather's watch that he's been wearing since his grandfather passed away and gave it to, well, and it was given to him after his grandfather's death. He ends up losing the watch. Now, as it turns out, the next day is going to be Elliot's confirmation. Obviously, all the Christians out there know what confirmation is, but I'm not going to fucking explain it because I don't care. So obviously, he's going through his or he's about to go through his confirmation. His mother asks him, "Are you going to wear your grandfather's watch to the ceremony?" And he says yes. This is after he had already gone into the cave and realized that he lost his watch. So the next morning, he sneaks out of the house and he decides to go back. Well, not the next morning, that night, actually. It's still nighttime. He lies to his mother, says that he's going to go back home, but he decides to go to the cave to try to find the watch. While in the cave, he ends up getting attacked by some scorpions. It's the first image of some scorpions that we get in the movie. We basically he walks into the cave. He sees a pile of dead guinea pigs. Maybe not a pile, but like a few, like maybe a half dozen dead guinea pigs. It freaks him out, and then he realizes that there's scorpions crawling up his leg. And in his infinite wisdom, after he gets spooked by the scorpions, he ends up spraining his ankle. He falls down and sprains his ankle. And then, of course, I'm questioning, well, shit, how did he get away from the scorpions? Well, we'll get our answer soon enough. As soon as, and then the next morning, it's the morning of Elliot's confirmation, and he is missing. His parents don't know where he is. The priest doesn't know where he is. So they decide to go looking. Candace, Elliot's mother, decides to ask one of the local kids, do you know where Elliot might be? And he says, well, I don't know. He didn't tell me specifically where he was going, but I do have an idea. And that's when he points out the cave to the mother. The mom and dad, Candace and Joel, they end up going to the cave and they find, well, no, they don't find, I'm sorry. They end up, they start going to the cave, but then they run into the shaman before they get to the cave. And the shaman lets them know that, oh yeah, your boy is at my house. He was injured and I gave him some soup. Now, you know, obviously, as horror fans, we kind of prick up our ears when we see a mysterious shaman giving some mysterious soup to an American kid. So the mother thanks the shaman and they end up leaving. And obviously, you know, Elliot's limping because he's got his sprained ankle. Now, on the way home, they end up running into one of the older ladies of the village. I forget her name. Inti, there it is, I-N-T-I, Inti. She notices that Elliot is limping, so she actually offers Elliot the use of her cane. Elliot's mom says, oh, no, thank you so much, we're okay, but Inti basically insists that he take the cane. So basically, as soon as when she hands the cane over to Elliot, Elliot's hand touches her hand, and instantly Inti's mood changes. Instantly, she's like, "Okay, go, just be gone." She keeps saying, "Be gone," and then when Candace basically keeps approaching her, saying, "What's happening? What's going on?" Inti just kind of collapses and starts crying and just tells them, "Get out of here, leave me alone," blah blah blah. Which, obviously, when Elliot's hand touched hers, she got obviously a feeling or something that Elliot isn't right, and that's kind of our first clue that something's wrong with Elliot. The next morning, unfortunately, Inti is found drowned in the river. This village is right next to a river. They find her next to the river, and when Candace finds out that Inti is dead, that she drowned, she instantly looks at Elliot because she remembers the exchange from the day before that Inti and Elliot had, where she basically, as soon as she touched his hand, told him to just leave her alone and get out of here. So she's already very suspicious of Elliot. After a while, there's more little things that happen. I'm not going to go into every single scene, but eventually we get the doubled voice, and obviously us horror fans know once we get the doubled voice, that's possession. That flat out, that is absolutely a possession situation. So at that point, Candace asks the local father, the local priest, if he can come and perform an exorcism. Now, obviously, the priest is like, "Well, we can't do that. We need to get official sanction to do something like that." Candace pleads with him. They don't have time, blah, blah, blah. The father eventually relents and goes to perform the exorcism. Now, this exorcism that he performs is literally only a couple of minutes long. He basically walks into the room, starts blessing the room, spreading holy water around, and then as soon as he sprays some of the holy water on Elliot, Elliot wakes up. He doesn't writhe in pain the way we've seen like in The Exorcist, in movies like that. It just kind of gets his attention. And once this demon starts speaking, he speaks very blasphemously, just basically saying, your God is not enough. There is no God here, blah, blah, blah. Just, basically letting everyone know that they have no hope. There's basically no hope for them to deal with this demon. Now, obviously, oh, wait, let me finish the exorcism. Basically, there's a back and forth. Eventually, Elliot screams at the top of his lungs, which, that loud demonic scream that makes the entire room shake. Elliot does that, and then eventually literally disappears. The priest turns around, and then he turns around again, and Elliot's completely gone. He decides the priest. Oh, and then eventually the priest does actually do like an incantation type thing, and Elliot seems like it worked. It seems like the spirit has left Elliot, because Elliot is back now, speaking as normal and wondering what's going on, because obviously in possession movies, the possessed people don't always remember what was happening while they were possessed, and that seems to be the case here with Elliot, or at least he's pretending. That evening, when the father goes home, he takes off his shirt, and we see that he has those penance scars on his back. I'm sure we've all seen this in a movie somewhere, where someone who feels like they've wronged God and feels like they have to pay penance will whip themselves with a barbed whip. So literally, they're just cutting their back open with every swipe. So we see the scars on the father's back, and we actually even see his, penance whip. It's like a cat of nine tails with metal spikes on it. The thing looks amazing. This should have been a weapon for the whole movie. But anyway, that evening Elliot shows up at the father's house, and this is the first time we see Elliot wearing the mask. And this mask, like I said, it's not the creepiest mask ever, but it's got a subtle creepiness to it that totally worked for me. Elliot, or should I say Elliot possessed by Supai, basically starts using the whip, but instead of actually physically hitting the priest with it, he's just kind of snapping it in his hand. He's probably standing about 5-6 feet away from the father, and he's just kind of snapping it in the air, but then the wounds are showing up on the father's back. So obviously, indirectly, he is causing damage to the priest. And then eventually, he ends up just killing the priest. I forget exactly how he did, but he did. He ends up killing the priest. The next morning, they have a funeral for the priest. Once again, Candace is very suspicious of Elliot because that night she notices that Elliot actually snuck out of his room and was not home at the time that the priest was being murdered. So Candace is like starting to put a picture together. She's starting to realize that everything that the shaman was saying to her is true. At first, Candace believes that the shaman did this to Elliot. You remember when Elliot sprained his ankle and then the shaman gave him some soup to help him out? That was basically Candace thinking that the shaman did this, cursed Elliot, but it's the complete opposite. Elliot cursed himself by entering that cave, because they even talk between the shaman and the shaman's assistant. They talk amongst themselves where they're like, did Elliot cross the did the boy cross the barrier? And the shaman's like, yes, he did. And the helper's like, well, there's probably not much we can do. And as it turns out, this demon, Supai, cannot be defeated. And they say it multiple times in the movie. He cannot be defeated. But what you can do is barter with him. Basically, he is a god of death. And the only thing that a god of death wants is life. So, obviously to possess someone or to just get the life force from other creatures. So this shaman has a habit of sacrificing guinea pigs to Supai. Unfortunately, it doesn't work this time. What ends up happening, basically Candace lies to Elliot to get him to go to the shaman's house. Once they get to the shaman's house, the shaman's assistant tackles Elliot and ties him up, and then they perform a second exorcism that doesn't necessarily look like an exorcism that we've seen before. It's definitely more ritualistic, more how can I put it? Primal, I think would be the right word for it. Like I said, the shaman is dressed in his traditional shaman clothes. He's basically chanting, in his language. It's not exactly Spanish. She mentions the language that the shaman is speaking. It starts with a K, but I can't remember what it was. Whereas the rest of the village is just kind of speaking straight Spanish because I could understand them. Whereas I couldn't understand the shaman. I didn't know what the hell he was saying. I needed the subtitles. So, by the way, poor subtitles on this movie. I don't know if either of my co-hosts noticed, but goddamn, the subtitles were terrible. I mean, obviously, you guys don't know Spanish, but like the subtitles for the Spanish.
It definitely helped add to the confusion for sure.
Yeah, exactly. So, like I said, we are at the shaman's cave. He is performing his ritual. Now, at one point, Elliot is able to get free of his restraints, and he does another one of his demonic screams. But at that point, the shaman blows a powder into Elliot's face. And it kind of knocks him out and, gets him back, in a good way, in a good position to be able to continue with the exorcism. But then Elliot just wakes up instantly and attacks the shaman. But then the shaman does the pretty cool fucking thing where he literally opens his mouth and this light shines out of the shaman's mouth, like a very, very bright light. So bright that it completely brightens the room. And then when the lighting comes back, they're in a different place. They're not in the shaman's cave anymore. They're on like another plane of existence, I guess. I mean, I guess you could call it hallucinations because I know what's that drug called? Yopo or something like that? The stuff that they blow in people's faces in South America. That's probably what this was. It was a hallucinogen. And basically, every time the shaman shines his mouth light, I was calling them deadlights in my notes, but they're obviously not deadlights. They're the complete opposite. Every time he shines a light in Elliot's face, they end up somewhere different. At one point, they're like outside, like out in the open, and basically the shaman says, "Okay, the demon is weakened. We need to try to figure out what we can do, blah, blah, blah. Again, the demon or Elliot attacks the shaman. The shaman opens his mouth and shines the light into him. And this time we're in the church. Oh, by the way, by this point in the movie, the church has been burned down by accident. I totally forgot to mention that after the priest's funeral, a candle is accidentally dropped off the altar and no one notices that it rolls right to the wall. Obviously, this is a third world country. The church is made completely out of wood, so the thing goes up quickly. My point being, obviously, I forgot to mention that, but like I said, the second time that the shaman shines the light into Elliot's face, they are transported to the church, which is no longer burned down. But inside of the church, all of the villagers are in the church, sitting in the pews, but they're all dead. Every single one of them is dead. And I didn't ultimately realize what was happening. But after you finish the movie, I think you realize that that's a premonition. That village is fucked. And why is that village fucked? Let me tell you why. Eventually, the shaman is able to get Supai out of Elliot. Unfortunately, as we've seen in many exorcism movies before, Supai then enters the shaman himself. And now we've got the shaman, the only person that can help this family, and he is now possessed. Oh, by the way, Dad is out cold because another thing I forgot to mention, Elliot does eventually attack his father, knocks him out. I don't know how the hell he survived that, because when they found him, there's blood everywhere. The window is broken. There's glass. I'm thinking Dad's totally dead, but nope, Dad was fine. He's just asleep in bed while the real exorcism is happening. So like I said, now the shaman is now possessed. The shaman's assistant tries to control the shaman. Obviously, the shaman being possessed by Supai, he now has, superhuman strength. He basically knocks down the assistant, picks up a large rock, and just starts smashing it into the assistant's head, killing him, obviously. Then the shaman pulls out his knife, his dagger, and he goes to attack Candace and Elliot. Like I said, Elliot is no longer possessed. He's on the ground with his mother. His mother's embracing him. We see the priest with the traditional possessed eyes, the kind of glossed over eyes. And then he kind of does that thing that, Father Karras does at the end of The Exorcist, where after he gets possessed, he kind of comes back for half a second. That's what the priest does. And it's almost exactly The Exorcist ending, just without stairs. Instead of jumping out a window and down a long flight of stairs, the shaman, in a moment of clarity, just looks at Candace and says, "I'm sorry," and then slits his own throat. Now, obviously, at this point, I'm wondering, so what happens to Supai? Well, it doesn't take long to find out. Elliot is right back to being possessed. Literally, as soon as the shaman slits his own throat, Elliot is back to being possessed by Supai. Again, the mother is basically trying to plead with Supai, "Please let go of my son," blah, 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 I think she said, for God's sake or something like that. And that's when Supai screamed back at her, "Your God is not enough." And that's kind of the theme of this whole movie, because he says that multiple times throughout the movie. Your God is not enough. God is not enough. So the shaman and his assistant were correct. Supai cannot be defeated, but he can be bartered with. During the second exorcism, the shaman's assistant tries to offer, give a sacrifice of about a dozen guinea pigs to Supai, figuring, if he accepts the life force from those guinea pigs, he might let go of Elliot. As it turns out, Supai took the guinea pigs anyway, but still didn't release Elliot. So at this point, Candace, the mother, who's literally about to be killed by, Elliot possessed by Supai, basically says, "Wait, I can barter. And she's like, just leave my son and take me." And then the Supai looks at her and says, "I don't want a tree. I want a seed that I can grow myself." So obviously he wants to possess someone young so that he can have a nice long life, here on our realm. And what does Candace do to barter with this fucking demon? I'm sorry, folks, but this is where I just start to get pissed off at this woman. She ends up grabbing one of the little kids that her son was playing with at the beginning. If you remember at the beginning when Elliot was playing with his toy plane, he was playing with a brother and sister from the village. Candace ends up taking the little girl, and basically leading her right to Elliot, who is now wearing the Supai mask. And then the camera fades to black, and when it fades back up, we see the little girl on the ground, and it almost looks like she's dead. Like, I thought we were going to get one of those weird twist endings where Supai basically just kills the little girl and decides to stay in Elliot, but doesn't let the parents, doesn't let them know so that he can, go with them back to the big city and do his thing. But no, as it turns out, the very last shot of the movie is the little girl waking up with the black eyes, and she is now possessed. Like I said, I'm fucking sorry, but listen, I've said it a million times. I'm not a parent, but to sacrifice an entire fucking village of human beings to save your child, to me, that seems selfish as fuck. And I'm sure there's parents listening to me right now probably cursing me out, saying I would have done the same shit to save my child. Well, guess what? If you would sacrifice a village of about 20 to 25 people to save just your child, you're a fucking selfish cunt. Go fuck yourself. I'm sorry. I fucking hated the decision that this woman made. Like, just because she didn't just give up one child for Elliot. She sacrificed that entire fucking village. Hence the hallucination from earlier when we see, when they're in that other plane of existence, they're in the church and everybody's in there dead. That's a premonition. Candace has fucking doomed this village to all be killed by this fucking demon. And I still wouldn't be surprised if once the demon was done with that village, that he doesn't try to seek out Elliot anyway, which would be fucking just desserts, in my opinion. So like I said, folks, as soon as the little girl opens her eyes and we see that she's possessed, the movie ends, and that's it. It just fades to black and we get our credits. And like I said, I already didn't like Candace very much in this movie. She says something really shitty to her husband, which really fucking pissed me off. I mean, if you guys remember when we did Together and I talked about that wife and the shit that she would say to her, well, not wife, but fiance, and the shit that she would say to her fiance to make him feel bad, Candace does basically the same thing. Apparently her husband was an ex-junkie. He's trying to convince her that the shaman is not the one who's doing all of this. And he basically says to her, enough is enough, all right? And then she looks at him and says, really? Someone who used to shoot up is telling me enough? And I'm sorry, but if you're going to lean on someone's tragic past to make them feel bad, you're a fucking piece of shit. And I'm sorry, in my opinion, Candace is a selfish cunt piece of shit who does not deserve to get her child back. I'm sorry, that's just the way I feel. To sacrifice 20 plus to save one, the math just doesn't fucking add up. It doesn't add up in any way, shape, or form, unless you are that selfish parent who's only thinking about your kid. Because think about it. What if you were the parent of the kid who was sacrificed? You know what I mean? Would you be okay with that? No, you fucking wouldn't. So why the fuck would you do it the other way around? Like I said, folks, I'm sorry. I'm going on a tirade here. I don't mean to, because I actually did enjoy this movie. I just fucking hate the decision that Candace made at the end of the movie. So I'm going to turn it back to my co-hosts. Maybe they disagree with me on Candace's motivations, if she did the right thing, if they would have done the same thing themselves. Maybe I'm wrong. Like I said, I'm not a parent. Maybe parents would sacrifice the entire fucking world to save their child. I mean, again, the math doesn't make sense, but that's just me, and I'm done. I don't want to talk about this woman anymore. So back to you, Mike, or Don, anybody else who wants to chime in.
No, I probably wouldn't, but I don't know. I wouldn't even be able to give an answer unless I was actually in the situation.
And that's an absolutely valid answer. Definitely. That I mean, there are certain things that, I can sit here and say that I would be okay if someone put a gun to my face. But until the day someone puts a gun to my face, I don't know what I would do. I might shit myself for all I know, or I might go into fight or flight mode and try to disarm the guy. I just don't know. So that is an absolutely valid answer, Mike. I'm not upset at that, but at the same time, I just like I said, I'm looking at it as an outside observer. And all I'm seeing is someone sacrificing 20 plus people to save one. And in my opinion, that doesn't make any fucking sense, especially because some of those people she sacrificed are also fucking children. There's at least like a half dozen kids in this fucking village, and she just sacrificed all of them. So, yeah, I'm sorry, folks. I'm like I said, I don't want to go off on a fucking tirade on this woman, even though I kind of already have. But yeah, I'm just gonna shut up because I could bitch about this person for probably another hour. But folks, if there are parents out there listening to my voice who 100% disagree with me, please hit me up. I beg you. I would love to hear from a parent that would be willing to sacrifice the world for their child. You can hit me up at Mr. Venom Podcasts at gmail.com. Please tell me why I'm wrong. And I'm done. Back to you, Mike.
I am done as well. But Venom, I know, I think last episode or is the main show you mentioned, you you switched, well, I don't want to say switch careers, but you got a new job. So have you recorded anything other than these shows lately?
Unfortunately, no. I've been, yes, I did get a new job. I don't remember what show I mentioned it on. Yes, almost 2 years of unemployment is finally over. I did change careers. I was a software engineer before this, but after the pandemic, just a lot of tech companies left Southern California. My wife is a veterinarian and she's very happy here. So I'm not going to force her to leave California just so I can get a job. So I ended up going back to retail, which is, basically, I think we've all worked in retail at one point or another in our careers. I actually had a lot of retail experience from high school and college. I kind of leaned on that. And I am now a merchandise manager for a major discount chain out here in Southern California. I won't mention names, but, after 2 weeks, I'm very happy with the new job. It is incredibly tiring. This is probably the first physical labor job I've had in over 25 years. So, yeah, a 55-year-old guy doing 8 hours of physical labor is not awesome by any stretch. I have been so tired lately, but it is awesome to be working again. So, yeah, I can count myself among the employed again, which makes me incredibly happy. So, yeah, there's the quick story.
All right. All that to say, you no time to really record anything else. So,
Yep.
Dawn, anything from you?
Not that I can think of. Still waiting on Creature Comforts to come together. Still waiting on a couple of other shows to drop that I've been talking about for a while. Yeah, that's pretty much all I got on my end.
Okay. The latest episode of the main show is in the can. I've just had a busy week, so I'll probably be working on that this weekend. And then also in conjunction with that, I'll be figuring out what the picks are for the next episode since it's my turn in the rotation, which will be big episode 70. Other than that, yeah, I ain't got much either. I've been busy and distracted and even like the non-horror, like I've sat down to like watch movies almost every night and something pulls me away to where I end up watching like TV instead because I don't need to be like as invested in what I'm watching. It sucks, but sometimes you just get busy. So, um, is anything hitting the theaters this week? Because I know like the new Toxic Avenger,
Yeah.
it's very limited here. I don't know what's going on. It's like we're going backwards with this because like I swear after Terrifier 2, it seemed like my Regal was starting to get everything, and then now we're about what, a couple years later, and it's back to like, oh, this one theater is getting it at this one time. Like, I think this weekend the only showings at the Regal are 10 o'clock, so I can try to see if other theaters have more decent times. But is there anything else besides that? Do you know?
Nothing else opening this weekend now. If you have any AMC's near you, AMC is playing it a lot. I'm looking
Okay.
at the AMC listing right now. It's playing 6 times a day.
All
So
right. I do have a yeah, I do have an AMC and a Cinemark, so
okay.
if I can work in showings or getting out to that one of those theaters, I'll try that too.
We'll have to check on that because my city doesn't have AMC. We have Cinemark.
Okay.
Okay.
All right,
Well,
we'll figure it out.
yeah. I mean, if it's not Toxic Avenger, I guess it'll have to be something online. Maybe we can find Hell House because I know Hell House had a limited release in theaters last week. Unfortunately, it was only playing at night, and with me having to be at work at 4 a.m., going to see movies late at night is not an option anymore. So, yeah, maybe if Hell House, what is it? Hell House Lineage, if that's
Lineage, yeah.
available, yeah, that could be an option. Even though I'm hearing a lot of bad things about it, but hey,
And that's coming to Shutter. That is coming to Shutter, I think, for
In a few
October.
weeks, yeah.
oh,
Oh,
okay.
I thought it was
Well,
September, but I don't know. Maybe it's
No,
maybe
I know
I'm
what
confusing
I've
it.
I've got the September ones. It's Dangerous Animals, Night of the Reaper, and House of Eden. I've already got the screeners for
ugh,
those.
avoid House of Eden. That was so goddamn boring. God
Yeah.
damn it,
I think that had
so
a
bad.
custom screenings here, and I almost went to see it, but I just
Okay.
didn't.
Yeah, I
Like I
saved
said,
you.
I think because I think for October they're doing the new VHS. I
Yep.
think Hell House is in there, or maybe it's November.
VHS Halloween. They just dropped a trailer for it today.
Yeah. But
Yeah,
I'm saying I know what the September ones are, and Hell House isn't in it. May be October or maybe November because they're going to start the countdown to Halloween stuff. So it may be
yeah.
one of those two.
Yeah, it looks like we're going to be in theaters almost every week in September. We
Okay.
got The Conjuring, we've got Him, we've got what is this? Oh, that's Him. Something called Xeno. Looks like a creature feature. Oh, The Strangers, Chapter 2, September 26th. So yeah, it looks like we're going to the
Oof.
movies every week in September. And not that I'm looking forward to the fucking Strangers, but if I gotta watch it, I gotta watch
Yeah.
Yay.
it. Yeah, exactly. Yay.
All right. Well, with that said, thanks for listening. We'll be back probably less than a week since we recorded this one later. Don't go into spooky caves. Let's say bye to our listeners.
Later.
Yeah, really. If your toy plane goes into a spooky cave, just fuck it. Go buy another one for fuck's sake.
Peace.